Good morning, family. This is Aunt Beth. Welcome to my lamp post. So, this morning, this week, this month, I've been thinking a lot about prayer and how to get my prayers answered. And I sort of had some aha moments, and I wanted to share them with you. And I got a lot of stuff trying to get out of my mouth at the same time. So, forgive me if this seems rather scattered. But the bottom line is, how would Jesus pray? Not only what would Jesus do, you've seen those bracelets, but how would Jesus pray? I mean, he got his answers. My success rate isn't that good. So I don't want to pass it off. Oh, it must not be God's will. No, I must be doing something wrong. And I started thinking about a business and when you have a problem. And I'm using this as an analogy. There's a sort of an information gathering stage. And then you get some counsel and do some planning. And then you come up with a couple proposed solutions, and then you go see your boss. You don't ever walk into your boss with just a problem. You walk in with the answer. And I realized that I was sort of conflating all of those steps, as well as getting a lot of background chatter from some friends of mine, just it's constant. And I'm like, do they really want to be healed, or do they just want to talk? Are they talking to find out what they think? I have some friends like that. So I started thinking about maybe I'm conflating a couple of different steps of what we all just call prayer, in the sense of, okay, does the situation, is it my business? Some things just bug me, but it's not my business, not my circus, not my monkeys. They're happy. It just bugs me. I know their life could be so much better, but they're happy the way they are. And I have to say, okay, let it go. That's, mind my own business. There is a proverb that says, getting involved in somebody else's business without being asked is like pulling the ears on a stray dog. You're going to be sorry. Am I doing just religious worrying, using God as a therapist? I'm venting, but I don't really want change. I just don't have the emotional bandwidth anymore to deal with all this caca. So I started to think about, how would Jesus pray? You get the counsel of the Lord, the Holy Spirit, on the situation, and wisdom and insight. And then there's a protocol, and it's sort of a checklist. Does it line up? Does it glorify God? I'm using the Lord's Prayer. Does it glorify God? Is it His will or mine? A lot of my stuff is my will. Lord, make it happen. Bug Him enough that He'll give it to you just to shut you up. Am I walking in forgiveness? Am I clean on everything? And reveal the traps, deliver me from evil. Lord, reveal the traps. So I'm conflating a lot. But it's been interesting because as I go to the Lord and just like, okay, what are your thoughts on this? This situation really bugs me. If it's my business versus not. That's sort of a primary sorting tool. And then what does the Lord want to do about it? And some insight. Because, to some extent, this is still our sandbox, and He's not going to step in unless He's invited. But He's also not going to, even though we may invite Him, if it's not within His bailiwick, or I can say within His character, because God is light and in Him is no darkness at all. So, sometimes we ask Him things that He just can't do because that's not who He is. He's not going to lie, He's not going to steal. You know what I mean? But I've also been starting to think, have I asked God for help to get involved in my life, or am I just venting? I just want to complain. It's sort of like I guess, a business plan or a geometry proof. It took me almost all year in geometry to figure out how to do proofs. But once I got it, I got it. You sort of stack the foundational laws together and you get the answer. Well, the word, I'm not talking about pulling from here and pulling from here, but you have to be in the flow. So as I have been really almost intentionally, forcibly retraining myself how to pray, like I think Jesus would, more of a business plan approach in the sense of getting the counsel of the Lord, gathering the facts, developing some options, and then going to the Lord and saying, here's the situation, and here is what I think are some viable options. How should we proceed? And taking it from there. I have seen a lot more of my prayers getting answered when I'm not just endlessly chattering, and venting. I mean, when's He supposed to pay attention? My will, not His. I once read a story about a photographer, a well-known photographer, that set themselves up for a challenge. Instead of, taking 1,000 pictures every day, which you can do with digital cameras, was much more expensive when you had film. They set themselves up for a challenge of only one photograph a day. And they found that one photograph a day was more thoughtfully carried out and more intentional and crafted, and they had a higher success rate of getting a really good photo. I'm not saying limit our prayers to one a day, but I think instead of this endless chatter, we be more thoughtful and crafting or working through the Lord's Prayer as a template of approach to God. It has definitely been working in the sense of the prayers that I pray getting answered, but it's also helping me sort out the fluff, you know. And I think sometimes when you have a reputation in business of getting stuff done or getting your requests, when you put them to the boss done, a lot of people try and feed you their requests because you have such a high success rate. But they need to go see the boss for themselves. They need to have some ownership or skin in the game. That's why I find these prayer lists that people send or prayer chains very frustrating. Sometimes I think it's just sanctified gossip and people don't have the skin in the game. But it's not that I won't pray for you, but I'm going to pray with you. If it's important enough for you to ask for prayer, then we're going to pray right now. Okay? And pray. If I haven't had time to seek the counsel of the Lord, then we're going to just pray the word over your situation, because I know his word is his will. But some people just want to sanctify religious, holy, complaining session. Maybe sometimes that's me. Anyway, a few thoughts on prayer. As far as I am seeing my life gain traction and move forward faster in a way that I haven't seen in a long time. And so I hope this helps you. Have a fabulous day. All God's best.